Good morning. Handsome Jack of Have Gas Will Travel. And we're doing a video on the TV antenna that cranks up on the roof. When we went to move this thing over here from our house, I went to put the antenna down. Well, the first thing that happened was, as I was cranking it, the handle snapped off right in my hand, and just snapped. Well, I did manage to get the antenna most of the way down, and then I realized that the whole thing was squeegee-jawed up in there. I guess that's the technical term for it, squeegee-jawed. Anyway, I knew I had to replace it. And when I knew I had seen one on Craigslist. So I got back on Craigslist, and I knew it had been quite a while. But somebody had one on Craigslist that was used for $40. And I thought, well, $40 is a lot better than $149, which is what they wanted for a new one. Because basically the only thing I needed was well, I wasn't sure exactly what I needed, because like I said, the whole thing was cockeyed in there. So I went on and looked, and sure enough, it had been on there long enough, it was gone, or the guy didn't repost it or whatever. But another one popped up for sale for $20. And supposedly it was, a lot of the parts in the package were new. The guy had hit a tree because he forgot to take his antenna down, and had busted the aluminum bars, or messed them up. So we called the guy, and he says, yeah, I've got it still. He said, you need the new aluminum bars for it, and they're, I don't know, $17 or $19 for the pair of them. But he said everything else in the package is new. The only thing I used out of the package was the head, and I put my old head back in, which worked fine. And he said, I used the bars, the two bars that actually hold the antenna up. And he said, that's all I used out of the package, was those three pieces, the two bars and the head. Well, all I needed was the part that went down through the roof and all that. But I wasn't sure of that at the time, because I hadn't tore it completely apart. Anyway, my wife stopped and picked it up, paid the guy. She brought it home, and I opened the box. Everything was in there. I mean, the new head that goes on the roof that turns and raises and lowers the antenna, all that stuff was in there. So then I figured it was time to tear mine apart and see exactly what I needed. And I'm glad that the whole thing was there, because mine was completely shot. It was probably the original that was on here in 1997, and it was just plain friggin' wore out. Somebody must have used the antenna a lot. So that's where we got our new one from. Craigslist is a great source of parts for these things. You may not see it right away, but keep your eyes open. Eventually something will come up that you need. Okay, that's it for now. Okay, I've been cleaning the spot where the unit sets down on the roof. It's extremely important that roof be super clean. This has a rubber roof on it, so one thing I can tell you right now, do not use a putty knife. putty knife, that rubber is so thin, it'll cut it in a second. And I know this from experience because I had it happen once before, another RV I had. That's why I learned not to use a putty knife. Fingernails. We'll clean it really good. I spent over half an hour on a circle that was less than a foot wide, but it has to be clean. Then when I got all cleaned, as long as I was up here, we have this big skylight here on the bathroom. So as long as I was up here, I had her throw me up some Windex and some paper towels, and I cleaned it. I'm up here. I also cleaned the inside of the roll-up vent covers. Anyway, here's what I've got. I've got it just as clean as I get it. I took Windex, wiped it down really good. And as you can see, I hope, this sits right down on like that. And you'll notice that I didn't try to get all this stuff off over here. That I can take off later. The main thing was I got it all the way off where it's where you see the line around it. It's clean all the way around. I'm getting ready now. I'm going to go ahead and put my silicone on there. Get this thing anchored down. This hole right here is where my wire comes up through, which sets right there. I just poked it down a little bit so I could clean that good. I'm going to go ahead and silicone around this, get that done. Put this unit on and mount it down, and we'll go from there. Okay, I have got it sealed down and on there where it belongs. I'll give you a quick look at it. So it's sealed down. I have the bottom bar in. I'm getting ready to put the top one in. Now, one thing you'll notice, and there's an easy way to tell them apart, is the top one that goes in has a gear on it. That's what raises and lowers that on a worm gear. So that's getting ready to go in now. This just hard to do with one hand. This just sets on down inside the rod. The pin that goes through that holds that in place is what holds the gear in place. So, all right, I'm going to continue on. I've got the base plate all down, all siliconed. I will go over it again and I will put it on top of the screws, but for right now I'm just trying to get the whole unit put together, and I'll go through and fix it afterwards. Okay, I've got it on. When you go to put the uprights on, the antenna's in the down position. In other words, the uprights are laying flat on the roof. And the gear part that I showed you on the end of the one has to be up, so that it's pulling it up as you crank the handle down. I got it in there backwards. It will fit backwards, but what it's going to do is it's going to try to, if it doesn't break, it's going to try to cut into that the rear post. So, like I say, you should, if you're putting one in a new one, you're replacing the whole thing. It'll come with instructions that'll tell you that, but I didn't read the instructions. So, anyway, now we're going to go ahead and run the wire down through the one post that connects to the amplifier down below. And we'll click back on here in a minute and show you what we've done. Okay, the new antenna is installed. This did not come with a boot for right here. I took one of the old boots, siliconed around the front of it, put it on. I had to cut the back off to get it over top the connector, and I siliconed around the back. Just a little extra protection. I left enough loop there for, I'm going to actually take and tie this down later on, create a drip loop, so it drips down there instead of in the hole here. Coming out the bottom, same way. I left a lot of line there. I siliconed that boot on. And I will put a drip loop in there too. Now, one thing you want to remember is this nut's here for a reason. And if you can see it, there's a little tiny plug right here. That plug, that one screws out, that one just lifts out. I used a pocket knife, it lifted right out. A few drops of oil in there every year will keep everything working nice and smooth. Because that's where your worm gear and stuff is on the top. Not the bottom one's the bearing that lets the whole thing actually swing in different directions. So you want to make sure that you put a little lube on them. Otherwise it'll get hard to operate. This way they don't. Anyway, that's the install from the roof side. Now I have to go downstairs and do that. One thing you want to do when you're done is you want to try to leave your antenna so that it's facing the pocket that it fits into down there when it's down. Because what you're actually going to do is lower it down, and if it's not lined up right or you can't get it in there, you want to make sure that it, when you crank it down, it's going to go into those things before you put the rest of the unit on inside. Otherwise it'll be wrong. So I guess downstairs is next. Alright, we got the antenna all on the roof all put up. These are the old bars that came with it. You can see the one end there is busted right off. This one here, it oblonged the holes a little bit. Other than that, it's not hurt. They look kind of handy, so I'll hang on them. But the weakest part of the whole bar is where there used to be a hole right here, and there's a big hole here. That's where your antenna coax goes through here and comes out, and it comes out here. Well, that's the weakest part of the thing. That's why it broke off there. It probably saved a lot of damage by having that break, but he took off with it up. So I always want to make sure that it's down or you're going to be going through this. I got lucky. Mine broke. I mean, I didn't run into a tree or anything with it, but I got lucky and found a whole unit for $20. So now next step will be going inside, because when you put a whole new unit in, the shaft for cranking it up and down is made extra long. You have to cut it off. It's made because these RVs all have different thicknesses of roofs on them. It's made so it'll penetrate even the deepest roof. And so that has to be cut off. And the little shaft that goes over top of it, the same thing with that. That's made for an extra deep roof. And so it has to be cut off to fit whatever you have. On ours, I got to cut probably 2 inches off on both of them, but we'll see before we're done. Right now, I'm sitting down and having my coffee that my wife made me because I was up on that hot roof working. So I'm going to sit here and enjoy my coffee for a few minutes, and I'll take you inside and we'll take a look at what we got in there. Okay, we're back inside. You can see the shaft sticking down here. This will get cut off probably about there. There's the old unit. There's the new unit. You'll notice that the old one's quite a bit shorter than the new one, so I got to cut the new one down to match the old one. The only reason I'm changing them out is see how nice and white the new one is. The old one's kind of yellow from years of being up there. I imagine it's the original one. And of course we got a new handle laying there behind it. And I've already put the new plate on the ceiling. It went right back in where the old one did. Same holes and everything. It's an identical antenna. So that's next. Cutting them off and getting it set up. Alright, here it is complete. You can see, looks just like the original install. The only thing I did was I changed the sticker so it was easier to see from this side instead of having it cocked around this way, or the handle cover part of it. I did have to cut the shaft off. That's what I had to cut off. I don't know, probably 3 inches. It said to leave it 1.5 inches down from the ceiling, which is roughly what I did, I think. I'm not sure if it was exactly that much, but
The reason I didn't give any dimensions for cutting anything is I also ended up cutting this part down, which is this part right here. And I made it just a little bit shorter than this one. But the reason I didn't give any dimensions or anything, because yours may not be exactly the same. This is a wind guard. I think most wind guards are standard, but I'm not sure. That's why I didn't put measurements in there. That's what your instructions are for. So that's what we ended up with. It works good. I've had it up and down. I've turned the direction and everything, put it back, and it drops right down in. So hold on a minute. Let me set this camera down. We'll do a little more talking. Okay. The only other thing I did is, because like I said, this guy bought this wind guard, brand new, used 3 pieces out of it, the head and the 2 bars. That's all he used. The amplifier and all that stuff was still in the original packaging. I did change that out just because it was newer than mine. And it was white where mine was brown. I don't know why they put everything else in here is white. They stuck a piece of brown in there, so I changed it over to white. It also had a place for a 12-volt plug in it, like a cigarette lighter plug. Where mine had it, but it had never been. I don't want to say it had the spot there for it, but they had never put one in it. There was no hole in it or anything. It was still capped over and everything, and this one did, and I thought, well, I probably don't need it, but one day I might, so I went ahead and put that up. Well, the antenna part, like I said, was simple. When you get yours, follow your instructions for cutting, and make sure that roof is spotless. You do not want to leak and have to tear that thing all apart again. It's a pain in the butt. And that's what took me the longest, was cleaning the roof. Probably a half hour. The rest of it slid together pretty easy. That's probably going to do it for the video today, pretty much. I am going to make another one. We've been in this thing 3 months, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. I'm not exactly sure. Time flies when you're having fun. I'm going to do one on the refrigerator and the freezer in here. Because after, we'll say 3 months, I got quite a buildup of ice in there. And it does affect how the refrigerator cools. It doesn't let the air circulate as much. And even though you'd think, boy, with that big chunk of ice in there, it's really going to keep it cold. It does to a point, but when the fins are all opened, I can put ice cream in there, and it's like a friggin' rock. It actually freezes as good as my house refrigerator that we had at home. But now that it's iced up so bad, the ice cream doesn't get soft, but it's nowhere near as hard as it was when those fins were cleaned. So we're going to do that probably, I don't know, sometime this weekend maybe. Maybe tomorrow. It depends on it. I got to see if I can find the stuff that I want to do it with. I know it's no big deal to a lot of people, but if you're living full time, it can be a big deal. And I'll show you how to do it in about 15 minutes. And I'll show you how badly built up it is too, because it's built up pretty bad. And in fact, it's gone too long, but it's just the way it is. We didn't get to it, and now we're gonna. Well, that'll be it for today. This is Handsome Jack of Have Gas Will Travel saying goodbye for now, and we'll catch you later on.